Good morning from sacred space at Titania's realm. The time is 11:24 a.m. on the 29th of June 2025. It's Sunday. It's going to rain. Apparently there's lots of rainy days coming to us, so I'm not overly delighted about that, but it's good for the garden, isn't it? Can't really contain. Need water, fresh water from the heavens. In Hebrew, Shaftamayim b'sason. Yes, every now and then I remember that I'm a Jew, but it doesn't happen all that often, but it slips out occasionally. Like a slippery, delicate little Swiss foil petticoat under a solid, sturdy Viking tweed garment. I'm a strange little, complex little, composite creature of light and delight and fight and smite. Sometimes, flowering in my own becoming. I was thinking just before when I was making my cup of tea, actually, I feel like I'm in a transition phase from one kind of life to another, like a birthing. You know, the part women of Earth that watch my videos and men would have no idea about that, unless you've, assisted your wives or girlfriends or lovers on their births. But there's a part in giving birth called the transition period, where you're not allowed to push. Mustang Quay has pushed herself through every aspect of life to get practically nowhere still, but never mind. It's part of the becoming. But anyway, there's a part of the birth process where you're not allowed to push because you can risk hurting the infant that's slowly tunnelling its way out of your cervix and fighting its way to get to your labia and emerge out into the world. And, is the infant really fighting its way, or is it the woman's body that's forcing it out? Probably a little bit of both. Anyway, the birth process, we're all traumatised by that in one way or the other, people of Earth. I wouldn't go into therapy over it though, because it's part of nature. Everything that's worth having, you've got to fight for, am I right? Including being born. You've got to prove your bloody mettle, and unfortunately, some don't make it. Some make it, spend the rest of their life tunnelling, pushing forward, struggling. It's kind of insane when you think about it. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, the transition period in the birth process, when the mother, the expectant, soon to become a mother of a healthy infant held in her arms, is told, don't push now, no matter what you do, by the gods, do not push. And it's hard because your whole body is wanting to send that little being out into the world, So, and I was stuck in that transition process for a long time with Crystal's birth because she was lying transverse, that means sideways. It was actually life-threatening. Hello? You've never sat on me before? That's progress. It was actually life-threatening for me to push her in that instance, and they had to physically turn her 3 times. So there was a couple of hours where I wasn't allowed to push, and so what you had to do was you had to pant, blow. That was the breathing technique to try and quell the urge of the body to just convulse and push the infant out. So it occurred to me just before, I had that memory and that sensation of being trying so hard to be loved and accepted all my life, to be loved and accepted and even at times celebrated, and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed with other humans, wanting to belong, and in a world that never fully was willing to receive me because, trauma issues and my own unique shamanic walk on planet Earth, my own strange little ways of looking at the world that is always a little bit different to the rest of society, because I had to fight for everything. Including at times my own bloody breath. Had to fight even delivering my babies, fighting with my own body. It should have been a pleasurable experience. Should have had a man by my side who actually truly loved me and was supportive, instead of complaining about me writhing in agony and screaming in agony and mocking and deriding me even in the birth process. The fucking pig. What did I do? Gave him another child after that. Well, wasn't well, was I? I was in denial. Didn't want to believe I'd chosen a monster. You never do as a woman. You go into a kind of a weird fugue state where you just function like an automaton because you've got to get yourself and your kids through, and you stay in denial for a long time about that monstrosity. Anyway, where was I? I began this story. I don't want to live in that consciousness. It's too awful and too fucked, and it's in the past. And I'm not going to keep drawing more monsters in by living in that consciousness. Discovered recently I've done that yet again. Someone so jealous and envious of me. I wasn't even allowed to talk to other men. And it's not like we were even sexual partners or lovers in a real sense. Never even kissed. Didn't go there because he was allegedly married. But so fucking envious of me. Envious of someone, fist pumping me and applauding my wild moshing zombie dance. Complained about me even dancing, requesting that song, my war cry. The song that defies my very existence in my entire life, including early childhood. Tried to ruin that for me. The lackluster, boring, insignificant motherfucker. You can tell I'm still a bit in love with him though, can't you? Because I'm still outraged. Well, I'll get over it one day. I get over it eventually. Sometimes it takes me 10 years, but I do get over it. Jesus, if it takes me 10 years, I'll be 70. Still banging on about that one. A man I never even made love with. Well, that can't happen, can it? Mama T will have to take a dose of harden the fuck up and shuck it off like the empty, vapid, callow, shallow husk it truly was. Liking all my Instagram posts for 3 months solid, like he'd set me on a calendar, like it was some job, playing me for a fool. Anyway, where was I? I began this video. Transition. Period. The transition. When you're panting and huffing and puffing and blowing your own house down in the vague hope that out of that sticks and stones and shattered flotsam and jetsam and atrophy and grief, you'll build yourself a better castle, one that's solid and concrete and built with the most beautiful flagstones, and there's a king waiting for you. He'll treat you like a queen and be good and kind and loyal and faithful and hold space for you while you clamber up the ramparts, all guns blazing, 142nd fastest gun in the West, you understand, because universal schmuck and all, but you'll fight your way, you'll paint and you'll puff and one day you might even find him and he'll find you, and it'll be just like a fairy tale, only real life, happy ever after. Am I right? Sisters of Estros and brothers of Testros. Anyway, I've been transitioning. Not the transition, for once I don't feel like I'm going to die, which is also a rather unique experience in my life. For once I feel like I'm transitioning into a rebirthing that is going to be so miraculous and astonishing and life-affirming and ennobling that all my true friends and true loves out there, even that one who pushed me away in such a cold, sadistic, callow way, will just stand in awe. I'll be like, my God, Tanya, you did it. How did you do it? You pissed me off, motherfucker. That's how you did it. Because I'm like that. You push me too hard, treat me too badly, crush me and grind me down to some sort of moulade puree of putrescence. What does the mama tea do but arise and shine like a blazing phoenix, shining her light bright as a beacon to others to follow? You can follow me. I can follow some of my heroes too that are out there. But you'll never be me, and you'll never crush me, and you'll never destroy me. Although you had fun trying. So I've had to put Kermie back in his cage and lock him down, and I'm not having like free range of because he wants to kill the little bow. Can you see the little bow? And I'm letting little bow have some free flying time. Isn't that cute how he just flew and landed on my shoulder and flew back? I thought he didn't like me. It's a sign when birds fly on your shoulder that they're accepting you, by the way. We won't get too excited about it because it might have just been a random anomaly. But I think that was his little way of saying, thank you, Mama T, for giving me freedom, loving me, even though I'm a bitey little bastard and I'm trying to bite you at every chance I can. He didn't know, did he? He just sat on my shoulder and I just kept talking. But I won't react, because if I react, he might bite me. He's a dear little thing, though. He's preening happily, and the other one's doing as much and up and down because he's not happy about being locked in this cage where a little bow has dominance over him, sitting above him. Now listen, boys, this is how it's going to be. This is how we exist at Sacred Space Titania's realm. There has to be sweet, sweet love and harmony. And if you can't harmonise, one of you mofos will have to go. He says. I'm not going anywhere. I've got a new coach. I've got it all happening, Mum T. Bing, bam, boom, baby. Yes, my love, you're not going anywhere. I'm just saying how it is. I'm laying down the law. Get along with the mama and each other. Be kind. If you can't be kind, at least be respectful. And we all get on like peas and potatoes, am I right? It's not a lot to ask. Not really. Right. Let us continue reading. Oh, the crows are out there. Let me have a bit more light. It's just slamming me too much in the eyeballs. I'm very sensitive to too much light in the eyeballs. Blue eyes and too many near deaths. They've always been sensitive in my eyes ever since early childhood. My mother used to take me along, walking along Wellington City. I remember we were walking up from Willis Street all the way almost to Tiara, which is a very bloody long walk actually for a child. I was about 7. I was exhausted. And I kept saying, Mummy, my eyes hurt. I was having to shield my eyes, She'd slap my hand down because she was a sadist. There's nothing wrong with your eyes. Mummy, they're burning. They're actually a bit sore. They're burning now, really sore. And I said, they're really hurting, Mummy. They're really hurting. It's piercing, felt like a knife being driven into my eyeball. It was that painful. And she thought I was putting on an act, My fucking asshole, psychopathic, narcissistic, cuntish family. When I was sick and vulnerable, they'd always say, oh, you're just putting on an act, you're just a drama queen. That's how savage they were. And it wasn't until the tears were involuntarily sprouting out of my eyes and pouring down, and I was panting and bright red and really suffering with the pain, that my mother finally on this long walk looked at me and went, you really are in pain, aren't you, Tanya? Mummy, I've been telling you that for half an hour. Anyway, we stopped in at a chemist and she bought me a little, child's pair of sunglasses. They were just cheap little sunglasses, they weren't any great quality, but that didn't matter. I mean, I was a kid, what did I know anyway? You don't know, you don't care about brands, and you just want the relief from the pain. Anyway, she bought me these little sunnies and put them on my little head, and the relief from that searing, bright New Zealand light. The light comes in at a different angle in New Zealand. It's probably because we're close to the equator. Sorry, not the equator. Close to Antarctica, the South Pole, and it's a searing, bright light, and you burn. You get sunburn and you peel. Burn and peel, burn and peel, burn and peel. Hence my struggle with sun cancers. When I came to Brisbane the first time, I burn and turn brown. Burn and turn brown. I went round in a state of astonishment. What are you astonished about, Tanya Aarons? You don't understand. I said, I've never had a tan in my whole life, not even when I lived in Melbourne. What do you mean you've never had a tan? I said, by the end of summer I'd get a bit of a tan, but I said, mostly I either look like a lobster or I'm shedding sheets of skin like a snake, which is ironic because I'm a wood snake in Chinese astrology. I said, I'm always in between, looking like a boiled lobster or shedding. I've never been brown before. Everyone, all the Queenslanders, the Brisbaneites, they all just looked at me like, what? It's a different light. It's coming in different angles. And UV or AB, UVA or UVB, I don't know what it is. And the scientists watching this can explain it, but it really blew my mind for the first few years I lived here. I'd walk around, I'd go, look, 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 I'm brown. And they'd be like, yeah, mate, you live in Brisbane. No, you don't understand. It's not coming off in sheets. They looked at me like I was an alien. No, mate, just a New Zealander. It's amazing though, isn't it, the different light. Oh, we've got a kookaburra out there. Hello, Cookie. Hello. Oh, you're a beautiful boy. I gave you a big chunk of chicken that someone's already taken it, probably the crows. Did you get any of that chicken, Cookie? Mummy forgot to eat it. It's 4 days old. I'm not eating that thing. It made me sick. It's okay for them. It's not rotten. It's just getting a bit long in the tooth for my gut to tolerate too well. He's looking all fat, fluffed up and happy up on his perch out there, out on the bough. You're a beautiful boy, Cookie. He says, Mama T, are you a bit high? I'm high on life lately. That's how I know I'm in a transition period too. High on life. Something or someone is coming. It's going to be quite a shift. My happy ever after might even be on his way to me. Oh, joy and delight. Will I be able to cope with a permanent lover though? Having to cook and clean and wake up to them in the morning, go to sleep with them at night. Could I handle that? Don't answer that question. I'm scared of it. Can you tell? It's probably why everything fell apart with my much beloved friend. I'm scared. I'm scared of abuse dynamics. I'm scared of yet another failure. And then it manifested. Shouldn't pay attention too much to your fears because it can manifest people there. I noticed he was hunky-dory with me for a long time when I was riding high, feeling confident, rebuilding myself after the grief over losing Beauregard. And then when I lost Charlie, it all ended. Kick you when you're down, those types. They all do it. It's been done to me before. Like the last serious boyfriend I had for 5 years ended up with me when my mother died. Cowardly dog. But it is what it is. It's human nature. They just want to have frivolity and good times and use you and abuse you and shuck you off when they can't milk you for anything else. Am I right? Never mind. There's good people out in the world. I meet them every day. Well, on the days that I go out there. I don't say too much, but I did say that to a young woman working in a health food shop on Friday. I made a point of telling her, you're a lovely woman, you're radiant, you're alive and now. I'm so happy to see that. There's good people out in the world, and good men too. You're out there too, boy chicks. You're not all feckin', feckless, callow-using assholes. But you're usually married to other women. You wouldn't be able to handle me, babies. I'm too free and I'm too wild. I'm too intelligent and at times too uncompromising. Because I know what I want from life. Someone who treats me with honour to my face and behind my back. Certainly wouldn't want someone who humiliates me at public gigs when I'm going there to dance and have a lovely time and potentially meet nice people. Jesus. Well, not Jesus, but you know what I mean. Anyway, today's story is called Another Synchronicity. I haven't read the stories. We're working our way together on this book. You and me and the gods and even the little birdies behind me. Today's title is, I love it. I love it a lot. The Unconquered. He came back into the kitchen. The man was still on the floor, lying where he had hit him, and his face was bloody. He was moaning. The woman had backed against the wall and was staring with terrified eyes at Willie, his friend. And when he came in, she gave a gasp and broke into loud sobbing. Willie was sitting at the table, his revolver in his hand, with a half-empty glass of wine beside him. Should be pronounced Villy then, because I've just realised the other guy's name was Hunt, so they're both either Dutch or German. So we'll amend Villy to Villy and Hunts to Hunts. I had an uncle named Hunts. Hunts went up to the table, filled his glass. I never met him, just say, Hunts Peter. No, that's the other one. Sorry, that's not my uncle. What am I saying? Hunts Petula was my uncle, and then my mother's first husband's name was Johannes Peter, but everyone called him Hunts Peter. Him I did meet. I met him in 1973. He was extremely kind to me. He was 8 years old, and I think it kind of came as a culture shock to him to see a child that he should have fathered but didn't, because he fucked up with my mother, and my half sister had left Germany with my mother in 1956 at the age of 6 years old, and she was visiting him at that point in time at the age of 20. Is it 23? 15 years older than me. Yes, she was 23. And I appeared 8 years old, and it was kind of like a closed circuit for him, I think, in his mind, because I look a lot like my mother, and here's this child marching into his life from New Zealand. He kind of fell a bit in love with me, as men often did, even in my childhood. But he wasn't a sexual predator or pedophile, nothing of that flavour. Thank the gods. Had quite enough of that by the time I was 8 years old. But he was lovely to me, kind and honouring, how a man should treat a little girl. Kind and honouring, respectful of their little body autonomy and their sweet little ways. I want to cry when I think about it, but I won't. He was a good man to me, a good father figure to me, and I'm glad I had that experience with him actually, because at 8 years old it taught me that there's decent men out in the world. Decent men being, in my frame of reference, a man who's not constantly trying to fuck you as a child or as a grown woman. No ugly agendas, no dominating, no destroying, no perversions. It's not to say you shouldn't, want to make love with a man you're in love with and he's in love with you back. That's not perverted, that's actually healthy and normal. But I'm talking about the types that just want to throw their leg on you and pump and climb off again and walk off into the sunset and never think about you again, because they're just, they're just that ugly and soulless and empty. But where was I? Oh yes, Hunts. So there were two Huntses in my family, one who was not related to me by blood because he was my half-sister's father, and the other Hunts Petula, who was, he was the son of my biological grandfather, and whose name was Anton Petula, although people called him Hunts too, which is probably why I called his son Hunts. So it gets a bit confusing. That Hunts name was quite popular with my mother. She even named one of her little canaries Huntsy. It's like, why are we perpetuating this name down through even to the birds? It's a bit weird. But look at me, I had a Beauregard, a dog named Beauregard, and then this little blighter up here comes into my life and his name's Beau. Some things carry an energy that sounds like a constant echo repeating. Some of it's a beautiful repetition. Some of it's an ugliness that needs to be completely blown apart or washed away or sloughed the fuck off. Just saying. Anyway, so let me repeat that lie. Billy was sitting at the table, his revolver in his hand, with a half-empty glass of wine beside him. Hunts went up to the table, filled his glass, and emptied it at a gulp. "You look as though you'd had trouble, young fellow," said Billy with a grin. Hunts's face was blood-stained, and you could see the gashes of 5 sharp fingernails. He put his hand gingerly to his cheek. "She'd have scratched my eyes out if she could, the bitch. I shall have to put some iodine on it. But she's all right now. You go along." "I don't know. Shall I? It's getting late." "Don't be a fool. You're a man, aren't you? What if it is getting late? We lost our way." It was still light, and the westering sun streamed into the kitchen windows of the farmhouse. Billy hesitated a moment. He was a little fellow, dark and thin-faced, a dress designer in civil life. "Look out, Bo, he's after your feet." He's not a very bright bird, our little Bo. It's very trusting, very loving and trusting indeed. Oh, who does he remind me of? Oh. And he didn't want Hunts to think him a sissy. He got up and went towards the door through which Hunts had come. When the woman saw what he was going to do, she gave a shriek and sprang forwards. "No, no," she cried. With one step, Hunts was in front of her. He seized her by the shoulders and flung her violently back. She tottered and fell. He took Billy's revolver. "Stop still, both of you," he rasped in French, but with his guttural German accent. He nodded his head towards the door. Just going to turn the heater off. Suddenly got quite hot. Freezing in here before. There we go, my boys. He nodded his head towards the door. "Go on, I'll look after them." Billy went out, but in a moment was back again. "She's unconscious." "Well, what of it?" "I can't. It's no good." "Stupid. That's what you are. Ein Weibchen. A woman." Billy flushed. "We'd better be getting on our way." Hunts shrugged a scornful shoulder. "I'll just finish the bottle of wine, and then we'll go." He was feeling at ease, and it would have been pleasant to linger. He had been on the job since morning, and after so many hours on his motorcycle, his limbs ached. Luckily, they hadn't far to go, only to Soissons, 10 or 15 kilometres. He wondered if he'd have the luck to get a bed to sleep in. Of course, all this wouldn't have happened if the girl hadn't been a fool. They had lost their way, he and Billy. They had stopped a peasant working in a field, and he had deliberately misled them, and they found themselves on a side road. When they came to the farm, they stopped to ask for a direction. They asked very politely, for orders were to treat the French population well, as long as they behaved themselves. The door was opened for them by the girl, and she said she didn't know the way to Soissons, so they pushed in. Then the woman, her mother, Hans guessed, told them. The three of them, the farmer, his wife and daughter, had just finished supper, and there was a bottle of wine on the table. It reminded Hans that he was as thirsty as the devil. The day had been sweltering, and he hadn't had a drink since noon. He asked them for a bottle of wine, and Willie had added that they would pay them well for it. Willie was a good little chap, but soft. After all, they were the victors. Where was the French army? In headlong flight, and the English, leaving everything behind, had scuttled like rabbits back to their island. The conquerors took what they wanted, didn't they? But Willie had worked at a Paris dressmaker's for 2 years. It's true he spoke French well. That's why he had his present job, but it had done something to him. A decadent people. It did a German no good to live among them. The farmer's wife put a couple of bottles of wine on the table, and Willie took 20 francs out of his pocket and gave it to her. She didn't even say thank you. Hans's French wasn't as good as Willie's, but he could make himself understood, and he and Willie spoke it together all the time. Willie corrected his mistakes. It was because Willie was so useful to him in this way that he had made him his friend, and he knew that Willie admired him. He admired him because he was so tall, slim and broad-shouldered, because his curly hair was so fair and his eyes so blue. He never lost an opportunity to practice his French, and he tried to talk now. But those 3 French people wouldn't meet him halfway. He told them that he was a farmer's son himself, and when the war was over, was going back to the farm. He had been sent to school in Munich because his mother wanted him to go into business, but his heart wasn't in it. And so, after matriculating, he had gone to an agricultural college. You came here to ask your way, and now you know it, said the girl. Drink up your wine and go. He had hardly looked at her before. She wasn't pretty, but she had fine dark eyes and a straight nose. Her face was very pale. She was plainly dressed, but somehow she didn't look quite like what she evidently was. There was a sort of distinction about her. Ever since the war started, he'd heard fellows talk about the French girls. They had something the German girls hadn't. Chic, Billy said it was, but when he asked him just what he meant by that, Billy could only say that you had to see it to understand. Of course, he'd heard others say that they were mercenary and hard as nails. Well, they'd be in Paris in a week and he'd find out for himself. They said the High Command had already arranged for houses for the men to go to. Finish your wine and let's go, said Billy. But Hans was feeling comfortable and didn't want to be hurried. You don't look like a farmer's daughter, he said to the girl. And so what? She answered. She's a teacher, said her mother. Then you've had a good education. She shrugged her shoulders, but he went on good-humouredly in his bad French. You ought to understand that this is the best thing that has ever happened to the French people. We didn't declare war. You declared war. And now we're going to make France a decent country. We're going to put order into it. We're going to teach you to work. You'll learn obedience and discipline. Sounds like a typical German mentality right there, doesn't it? Working. Arbeiten machen sie frei. Those evil Schweinhunde put on the gates of Auschwitz, which started out as a slave labour camp before it became one of the Germans' most industrialised ways of killing and disposing of people. Not just Jews either, but Roma, LGBTIQ, and political prisoners and pacifists and anyone who dared stand against Hitler and his mad, evil regime. Industrialised death. Who won that war after all? Because they're back at it again with the COVID epoch. It never ends, people of Earth. It never fucking ends. So I get why the good time Charlies just want to get their dicks wet and in and out and have frivolity and have a bit of fun before they die, and thought they could take down the Mama T for bearing witness to it all and just wanting to be, loved for real for a change, perhaps at long last. We all want that comfort and ease and sweetness and romance and passion that's ours at long last. Wow. Now I bear witness to a dying world. Alone in my room, watching the world implode. It's a bit weird, people of Earth, but I'm not giving into it just yet. I'm going to derive happiness from whatever the gods decree. Sweet little birdies and old stories to share on YouTube with those of you who actually get what it is I'm putting down. God is blessed to true friends and true beloveds and true humans. You're out there, people there. You're out there. We have a shared humanity and a shared history, and some of us have shared wisdom, fought for in the cold faces of abject terror and abject trauma. Here we are, living our best lives with harm to none and competition with none. So it is done. Little boy, little boy. My little boy. Right, here we go. We continue with the story. I have a little digression there. Ah, yes. You'll learn obedience and discipline. And every cell in my body just conflagrated and said, and you'll learn to fuck the hell off. She clenched her fist and looked at him, her eyes black with hatred. I'm with you, my petit sir. But she did not speak. You're drunk, Hans, said Billy. I'm as sober as a judge. I'm only telling them the truth, and they may just as well know it at once. He's right, she cried out, unable to contain herself any longer. You're drunk. Now go. Go. Allez. I threw F, but allez means go. Go, 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 go. And when you go, keep going. Oh, you understand German, do you? All right, I'll go, but you must give me a kiss first. She took a step back to avoid him, but he seized her wrist. Father, she cried, Father! The farmer flung himself on the German. How nice, a father who actually protects his daughter. But I mustn't be bitter, must I? They're all dead now. Can't hurt me anymore, motherfuckers. Hans let go of her, and with all his might hit him in the face, hitting the father. He crumpled on the floor. Then, before she could escape him, he caught the girl in his arms. She gave him a swinging blow on the cheek. He chuckled grimly. Is that how you take it when a German soldier wants to kiss you? You'll pay for this. A Nazi and a rapist. Vile. Just fucking vile. With his great strength, he pinioned her arms and was dragging her out of the door. But her mother rushed at him and, catching him by the clothes, tried to pull him away. A good mother. With one arm holding the girl close to him, with the flat of his other hand, he gave the woman a great push, and she staggered back to the wall. Hans! Hans! Cried Billy. Shut up, damn you. He put his hands over the girl's mouth to stop her shrieking and carried her out of the room. That was how it had happened, and you had to admit that she'd brought it on herself. She shouldn't have slapped him. Perhaps he shouldn't have acted like a rapist, that she wouldn't have. This is their mentality, the animals. If she'd given him the kiss he'd asked for, he'd have gone away. She gave a glance at the farmer, still lying where he had fallen, and she could hardly help laughing at his funny face. Sorry, he could hardly help laughing at his funny face. There was a smile in his eyes when he looked at the woman cowering against the wall. Was she afraid it was her turn next? Not likely. He remembered a French proverb. C'est le premier parce qu'il coûtait. There's nothing to cry about, old woman. It had to come, sooner or later. He put his hand to his hip pocket and pulled out a wallet. Look, here's 100 francs so that mademoiselle can buy herself a new dress. There's not much left of that one. He placed the note on the table and he put his helmet back on his head. Let's go. They slammed the door behind them and got on their motorcycles. The woman went into the parlour. Her daughter was lying on the divan. She was lying as he had left her, and she was weeping bitterly. 3 months later, Hans found himself in Soissons again. He had been in Paris with the conquering army and had ridden through the Arc de Triomphe on his motorcycle. He had advanced with the army first to Tours and then to Bordeaux. He'd seen very little fighting, too busy raping his way through France, am I right? The fucking pig. The only French soldiers he'd seen were prisoners. You're getting to see my inner Baudelaire, those of you watching these videos. She comes out from time to time. Righteously so too. The campaign had been the greatest spree he could ever have imagined. After the armistice, he had spent a month in Paris. He'd sent picture postcards to his family in Bavaria and bought them all presents. Willy, because he knew the city like the palm of his hand, had stayed on, but he and the rest of the unit were sent to Soissons to join the force that was holding it. It was a nice little town, and he was comfortably billeted. Plenty to eat, and champagne for less than a mark a bottle in German money. When he was ordered to proceed there, it had occurred to him that it would be fun to go and have a look at the girl he'd had. He'd take her a pair of silk stockings to show there was no ill feeling. He had a good bump of locality, and he thought he would be able to find the farm without difficulty. The chutzpah of it, the complete, cold, sadistic, psychopathic chutzpah of it. It's astonishing, isn't it, people? It's astonishing. It almost makes me glad the world is dying and I get to bear witness to it every day in every way. It's taken 80 years for the world to finally implode. They say the world's going to, finish with AI in 3 years' time now. They said that for 2 years ago that it would be 5 years. We're on the countdown to 3 years now. And part of me wants to see a better world still, because I'm Pollyanna like that, an optimist. Keep hope alive. Dream the psychedelic dream of true and great and real love and a better society, a utopia of sorts, something that's good for all of us. And then the other part of me that knows what we're really capable of will be quite glad to watch it all fizzle out. Fizzle, shizzle, drizzle, sizzle. Chilling, isn't it? But I'm a second generation survivor of that war, and not just of their traumas from that war, but their debased and disgusting predilections that they afflicted me with as well, as if it wasn't quite enough. Ken's on a swing. Where's little Bo? Where's my little Bobo? Sitting on top of Kermie while he swings. That man who promised me safety, then tore it away with his sadism. Fuck you. Anyway, on we go, people of Earth. On we go. So one afternoon when he had nothing to do, he put the silk stockings in his pocket and got on his machine, adding insult to injury, raping the women and then treating them like whores as well, as if they had a choice in that, as if they were for sale, as if they could be bought, as if they could be bought and as if they could be conquered. You know nothing, Jon Snow. It was a lovely afternoon, with hardly a cloud in the sky, and it was pretty undulating country that he rode through. It had been fine and dry for so long that, although it was September, not even the restless poplars gave sign that the summer was drawing to an end. He took one wrong turning, which delayed him, but for all that, he got to the place he sought in less than half an hour. A mongrel dog barked at him as he walked up to the door. He did not knock, but turned the handle and stepped in. The girl was sitting at the table, peeling potatoes. She sprang to her feet when she saw the uniformed man. "What do you want?" Then she recognized him. She backed to the wall, clutching the knife in her hands. "It's you, cochon," which, in case you don't know, is French for pig. "Don't get excited. I'm not going to hurt you. Look, I've brought you some silk stockings. Take them away and take yourself off with them. Don't be silly. Drop the knife. You'll only get hurt if you try to be nasty. You needn't be afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of you," she said. She let the knife fall to the floor. He took off his helmet and sat down. He reached out with his foot and drew the knife towards her. "Shall I peel some of your potatoes for you?" She did not answer. He bent down for the knife and then took a potato out of the bowl and went to work on it, her face hard, her eyes hostile. She stood against the wall and watched him. He smiled at her disarmingly. Why do you look so cross? I didn't do you much harm, you know. I was excited. We all were. They talked of the invincible French army and the Maginot Line. He finished the sentence with a chuckle. And the wine went to my head. You might have fared worse. Women have told me that I'm not a bad-looking fellow. She looked him up and down, scornfully. Get out of here. Not until I choose. If you don't go, my father will go to Soissons and complain to the general. Much he'll care. Our orders are to make friends with the population. What's your name? That's not your business. There was a flush in her cheeks now, and her angry eyes were blazing. She was prettier than he remembered her. He hadn't done so badly. She had a refinement that suggested the city dweller rather than the peasant. He remembered her mother saying she was a teacher. Because she was almost a lady, it amused him to torment her. He felt strong and healthy. He passed his hand through his curly blonde hair and giggled when he thought that many girls would have jumped at the chance she had had. His face was so deeply tanned by the summer that his eyes were startlingly blue. Where are your mother and father? Working in the fields. I'm hungry. Give me a bit of bread and cheese and a glass of wine. I'll pay. She gave a harsh laugh. We haven't seen cheese for 3 months. We haven't enough bread to stay our hunger. The French took our horses a year ago, and now the Boche have taken our cows, our pigs, our chickens, everything. Well, they paid you for them. Can we eat the worthless paper they gave us? She began to cry. Are you hungry? Oh no, she answered bitterly. We eat like kings on potatoes and bread and turnips and lettuce. Tomorrow my father's going to Soissons to see if he can buy some horse meat. Listen, miss, I'm not a bad fellow. I have to roll my eyes at that, so rapists telling people they're not bad fellows. It's vile, isn't it? Vile. I'll bring you a cheese, and I think I can get hold of a bit of ham. I don't want your presents. I'll starve before I touch the food you swine have stolen from us. We'll see, he said good-humouredly. He put on his hat, got up, and with an au revoir, mademoiselle, walked out. He wasn't supposed to go joyriding round the country, and he had to wait to be sent on an errand before he was able to get to the farm again. It was 10 days later. He walked in as unceremoniously as before, and this time he found the farmer and his wife in the kitchen. It was round about noon, and the woman was stirring a pot on the stove. The man was seated at table. They gave him a glance when he came in, but there was no surprise in it. Their daughter had evidently told them of his visit. They did not speak. The woman went on with her cooking, and the man, a surly look on his face, stared at the oilcloth on the table. But it required more than this to disconcert the good-humoured Hunts. "Bonjour, la compagnie," he said cheerfully. "I've brought you a present." He undid the package he had with him and set out a sizable piece of Gruyere cheese, a piece of pork, and a couple of tins of sardines. Almost worth being raped for, but not quite, you understand. The woman turned round, and he smiled when he saw the light of greed in her eyes. Well, they're hungry, you understand. Hunger will turn you into submissive fools. It's amazing what you'll do when you're hungry. Hungry for love, hungry for acceptance, hungry for safety, hungry for peace. You dirty motherfuckers. And I include that one that probably still watches my videos, but asked to meet me in a public park. Buy me a coffee. The coffee shop was closed. But I, thinking he might be a, nice man and decent and honouring, perhaps a friend, perhaps in time a lover, sat and talked to him for an hour at that park. And then he quickly made an excuse that he had to go home to his teenage children, which is fair enough when you're a father. So I got in my car and I drove to Greenslopes shopping centre and got on the phone to debrief about the date with my friend Lynn. And what do I see? A vehicle just like his driving past. I'm fairly certain he'd stalked me and followed me to the Greenslopes Mall. And how I know for certain was he messaged me later and asked me if I'd had dinner and basically where I'd been. Another fucking weirdo control freak. Yes, I did know, and I am aware, motherfuckers. They're so inept and incapable of being real men. So I chose safety by then pouring all my love and energy into my musician friend, thinking at least we had a good solid friendship. And here we are now. Another betrayal. And another seeping wound, which shall seep for a while, by the way, till I'm ready to staunch it. The thing these men misinterpret, my kindness for weakness. Very foolish move on your parts, boy chicks. Very foolish move on your parts. I have friends in very high places. Some of them are not visible, you understand. It's not good to trivialise, to mock and deride and humiliate, to attempt to psychically rape the Tanya, sending me your little incubi. I know what you're doing, by the way. Is it your love, or is it your obsession, or is it your guilt and your shame, or is it all of those things blended together like an ancient mullied stock? Bodhisattva's here and wants to know what your filthy agendas were and who you are in service to when you try to destroy the Tanya. Still waiting for the truth on that one. Not one of you has been courageous enough to come forward. Wow. The clock is ticking. 3 years till doomsday, according to the doomsayers and the AI philators. We'll see, won't we? There's another kind of world for the Tanya. Kind and honouring and noble and courageous. Let us refrain from reading the story. The woman turned round and he smiled when he saw the light of greed in her eyes. The man looked at the foodstuff sullenly. Hans gave him his sunny grin. I'm sorry we had a misunderstanding the first time I came here, but you shouldn't have interfered. Misunderstanding, is that what they call it? At that moment the girl came in. What are you doing here? She cried harshly. Then her eyes fell on the things he had brought. She swept them together and flung them at him. Take them away! Take them! But her mother sprang forward. Annette, you're crazy. I won't take his presents. It's our own food that they've stolen from us. Look at the sardines. They're Bordeaux sardines. She picked the things up. Hans looked at the girl with a mocking smile in his light blue eyes. Annette's your name, is it? A pretty name. Do you grudge your parents a little food? You said you hadn't had cheese for 3 months. I couldn't get any ham. I did the best I could. The farmer's wife took the lump of meat in her hands and pressed it to her bosom. You felt that she could have kissed it. Tears ran down Annette's cheeks. The shame of it, she groaned. Oh, come now. There's no shame in a bit of Gruyere and a piece of pork. Hans sat down and lit a cigarette. Then he passed the packet over to the old man. The farmer hesitated for a moment, but the temptation was too strong for him. He took one and handed back the packet. Keep it, said Hans. I can get plenty more. He inhaled the smoke and blew a cloud of it from his nostrils. Why can't we be friends? What's done can't be undone. War is war, and, well, you know what I mean. I know Annette's an educated girl, and I want her to think well of me. I expect we shall be in Soissons for quite a while, and I can bring you something now and then to help out. You know, we do all we can to make friends with the townspeople, but they won't let us. They won't even look at us when we pass them in the street. After all, it was an accident what happened that time I came here with Billy. You needn't be afraid of me. I'll respect Annette as if she was my own sister. My God, I want to kill her myself with my bare hands right now. The vermin that he really is. Why do you want to come here? Why can't you leave us alone? Asked Annette. Why can't he find a woman on his own merits that he doesn't have to rape and to possess? Curious minds want to know. A handsome man like that, you understand. Sick motherfucker is what he is. Sick and evil and depraved. He really didn't know. He didn't like to say that he wanted a little human friendship. The silent hostility that surrounded them all at Soissons got on his nerves so that sometimes he wanted to go up to a Frenchman who looked at him as if he wasn't there and knock him down. And sometimes it affected him so that he was almost inclined to cry. It would be nice if he had some place to go where he was welcome. If you didn't behave like an animal, you'd be welcome everywhere. He spoke the truth, that he said he had no desire for Annette. She wasn't the sort of woman he fancied. He liked women to be tall and full-breasted, blue-eyed and fair-haired like himself. He liked them to be strong and hefty and well-covered. That refinement which he couldn't account for, that fine, thin nose and those dark eyes, the long, pale face. There was something intimidating about the girl, so that if he hadn't been excited by the great victories of the German armies, if he hadn't been so tired and yet so elated, if he hadn't drunk all that wine on an empty stomach, it would never have crossed his mind that he could have anything to do with her. For a fortnight after that, Hans couldn't get away. He'd left the food at the farm, and he had no doubt that the old people had wolfed it. He wondered if Annette had eaten it too. He wouldn't have been surprised to discover that the moment his back was turned, she had set to with the others. These French people, they couldn't resist getting something for nothing. They were weak and decadent. No, they were simply hungry and traumatized and victimized, and every human being has a right to 3 square meals a day, by the way. You bastards. She hated him. Yes, God, how she hated him. But pork was pork and cheese was cheese. He thought of her quite a lot. It tantalized him that she should have such a loathing for him. He was used to being liked by women. It would be funny if one of these days she fell in love with him. It's what they think. It's just funny to have you need them, desire them, want to lie in bed with them, while they hate you and despise you and treat you with contempt and play psychological operations games with you, thinking that you will crack and suicide or crawl away or fall away. Fools they are. He'd been her first lover. No, he hadn't. He'd been her rapist. Let's call it how it really is. This is what the problem is in the battle of the sexes, even in contemporary society in 2025. So many can't tell the difference between love and hate and consent and desire and bringing things to fruition in an honourable, caring, respectful way. He'd been her first lover, and he'd heard the students at Munich over their beer saying that it was her first lover a woman loved. After that, it was love. He really is fucking warped, isn't he? When he'd set his mind on getting a girl, he'd never failed yet. Hunts laughed to himself, and a sly look came into his eyes. At last, he got his chance to go to the farm. He got hold of cheese and butter, sugar, a tin of sausages, and some coffee, and set off on his motorcycle. But that time, he didn't see Annette. She and her father were at work in the fields. The old woman was in the yard, and her face lit up when she saw the parcel he was bringing. She led him into the kitchen. Her hands trembled a little as she untied the string, and when she saw what he had brought, her eyes filled with tears. "You're very good," she said. "May I sit down?" he asked politely. "Of course." She looked out the window, and Hans guessed that she wanted to make sure that Annette was not coming. "Can I offer you a glass of wine?" "I'll be glad of it." He was sharp enough to see that her greed for food had made her, if not friendly to him, at least willing to come to terms with him, like a cowed, bloody animal betraying her own daughter. That look out of the window made them almost fellow conspirators. "Did you like the pork?" he asked. "It was a treat. I'll try to bring you some more next time I come. Did Annette like it?" "She wouldn't touch a thing you'd left. She said she'd rather starve." My girl. Silly. That's what I said to her. As long as the food is there, I said, there's nothing to be gained by not eating it. They chatted quite amicably while Hunt sipped his wine. He discovered that she was called Madame Perrier. He asked her whether there were any other members of the family. She sighed. No, they'd had a son, but he'd been mobilised at the beginning of the war, and he'd died. He hadn't been killed. He got pneumonia and died at the hospital at Nancy. I'm sorry, said Hans. Perhaps he's better off than if he'd lived. He was like Annette in many ways. He could never have borne the shame of defeat. She sighed again. Oh, my poor friend, we've been betrayed. Why did you want to fight for the Poles? What were they to you? You're right. If we had let your Hitler take Poland, he would have left us alone. When Hans got up to go, he said he could come again soon. I shan't forget the pork. Then Hans had a lucky break. He was given a job that took him twice a week to a town in the vicinity, so that he was able to get to the farm much oftener. He took care never to come without bringing something, but he made no headway with Annette. Seeking to ingratiate himself with her, he used the simple wiles that he had discovered went down with women, but they only excited her derision. Thin-lipped and hard, she looked at him as though he were dirt. Which he indeed is, by the way, worse than dirt. On more than one occasion, she made him so angry that he would have liked to take her by the shoulders and shake the life out of her. Once he found her alone, and when she got up to go, he barred her passage. Stop where you are. I want to talk to you. Talk. I am a woman and defenceless. What I want to say is this. For all I know, I may be here for a long time. Things aren't going to get easier for you French. They're going to get harder. I can be useful to you. Why don't you be reasonable, like your father and mother? It was true that old Perrier had come round. You couldn't say that he was cordial, but he was indeed cold and gruff, but he was civil. He had even asked Hans to bring him some tobacco, and when he wouldn't accept payment for it, had thanked him. He was pleased to hear the news of Soissons, and grabbed the paper that Hans brought him. Hans, a farmer's son, could talk about the farm as one who knew. It was a good farm, not too big and not too small, well watered, for a sizable brook ran through it, and well wooded, with arable land and pasture. Hans listened with understanding sympathy when the old man bewailed himself because without labour, without fertilizers, his stock taken from him, it was all going to wrack and ruin. You ask me why I can't be reasonable like my father and mother, said Annette. She pulled her dress tight and showed herself to him. He couldn't believe his eyes. What he saw caused such a convulsion in his soul as he had never known. The blood rushed to his cheeks. You're pregnant? She sank back on her chair and, leaning her head on her hands, began to weep as though her heart would break. The shame of it, the shame. He sprang towards her to take her in his arms. "My sweet," he cried, but she sprang to her feet and pushed him away. "Don't touch me. Go away. Go away. Haven't you done me enough harm already?" She flung out of the room. He waited by himself for a few minutes. He was bewildered. His thoughts in a whirl, he rode slowly back to Soissons, and when he went to bed, he couldn't get to sleep for hours. He could think of nothing but Annette and her swollen body. She had been unbearably pathetic as she sat there at the table, crying her eyes out. It was his child she bore in her womb. He began to feel drowsy, and then with a start he was once more wide awake, for suddenly it came to him. It came to him with the shattering suddenness of gunfire. He was in love with her. It was such a surprise, such a shock, that he couldn't cope with it. Of course, he thought of her a lot, but never in that way. He thought it would be a great joke if he made her fall in love with him. It would be a triumph if the time came when she offered what he had taken by force. But not for a moment had it occurred to him that she was anything to him but a woman like another. She wasn't his type. She wasn't very pretty. There was nothing to her. Why should he have, all of a sudden, this funny feeling for her? It wasn't a pleasant feeling either. It was a pain. But he knew what it was all right. It was love, and it made him feel happier than he had ever felt in his life. He wanted to take her in his arms. He wanted to pet her. He wanted to kiss those tear-stained eyes of hers. He didn't desire her, he thought, as a man desires a woman. He wanted to comfort her, wanted her to smile at him. Strange, he had never seen her smile. He wanted to see her eyes. Fine eyes they were, beautiful eyes, soft with tenderness. For 3 days he could not leave Soissons, and for 3 days and 3 nights, he thought of Annette and the child she would bear. Then he was able to go to the farm. He wanted to see Madame Perrier by herself, and luck was with him, for he met her on the road some way from the house. She had been gathering sticks in the wood, and was going home with a great bundle on her back. He stopped his motorcycle. He knew that the friendliness she showed him was due only to the provisions he brought with him. But he didn't care. It was enough that she was mannerly and that she was prepared to be, so as long as she could get something out of him. He told her he wanted to talk to her and asked her to put her bundle down. She did as he bade. It was a grey, cloudy day, but not cold. I know about Annette, he said. She started. How did you find out? She was set on your not knowing. She told me. That was a pretty job of work you did that evening. I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She began to talk, not bitterly, not blaming him even, but as though it were a misfortune of nature, like a cow dying and giving birth to a calf, or a sharp spring frost nipping the fruit trees and ruining the crop, a misfortune that humankind must accept with resignation and humility. Like falling in love with a jealous, envious, fickle, spiteful man who didn't have my back, my front or my sides, who faked friendship and faked love, but at least he wasn't a rapist. But it was a kind of a soul rape, which is, in the broad scheme of things, same. And now I'm giving birth to a new version of me. Be afraid, be very afraid. Butchers. As a shaman, I healed you all in different ways, in many varied ways. And that was how you repaid me. Motherfuckers. But don't worry, I have real loves in my life, and I know who they are, and I can count them on one hand. And that is indeed a great and powerful gift from the multiverse. Blessed be to my true darlings. After that dreadful night, Annette had been in bed for days with a high fever. They thought she was going out of her mind. She would scream for hours on end. There were no doctors to be got. The village doctor had been called to the colours. Even in Soissons there were only 2 doctors left, old men both of them. And how could they get to the farm, even if it had been possible to send for them? They weren't allowed to leave the town. Even when the fever went down, Annette was too ill to leave her bed, and when she got up, she was so weak, so pale, it was pitiful. The shock had been terrible, and when a month went by and another month without her being unwell, she paid no attention. She had always been irregular. It was Madame Perrier who first suspected that something was wrong. She questioned Annette. They were terrified, both of them, but they weren't certain, and they said nothing to Perrier. When the 3rd month came, it was impossible to doubt any longer. Annette was pregnant. They had an old Citroën in which, before the war, Madame Perrier had taken the farm produce into the market at Soissons 2 mornings a week. But since the German occupation, they had had nothing to sell that made the journey worthwhile. Petrol was almost unobtainable, but now they got it out and drove into town. The only cars to be seen were the military cars of the Germans. German soldiers lounged about. There were German signs in the streets and on public buildings, proclamations in French signed by the officer commanding. Many shops were closed. They went to the old doctor they knew and he confirmed their suspicions. But he was a devout Catholic and would not help them. When they wept, he shrugged his shoulders. You're not the only one, he said. Il faut souffrir. They knew about the other doctor too. I'm thinking right now of all the Iranian and Israeli women in a war with the bloodletting and the bloodlust of soldiers and military personnel. Same evil on repeat. You flying, my little boy? You fly and be free and happy while we all still can. Motherfuckers. All of you. All of you. Did you try to destroy me because I spoke out against the COVID regime and still do, by the way? Palaszczuk's butt boys. Is that what was behind it? Is that the truth you dare not speak to me? Because you're bloodless, cowardly curs. Or did you try to destroy me because I'm a woman on my own, live on a disability, and you assumed I was weak and pathetic and worthless? Or did you try to destroy me because I'm a Jew? Or did you try to destroy me because I'm part German? Did you try to destroy me because I have Boadicea blood in my veins? If not true blood, then at least her defiance and her courage and her sensibilities flowing through my veins like fire on ice, like diamonds and pearls, one created by carbon in the earth, and the other the nacre layered upon layer of tears. How does it make you feel that you failed to destroy me, Bridges, and your unworthy henchwomen? Have you no fucking shame? But it's a beautiful day, rain or no rain. We have 3 more years. 3 more years. What will my 63rd birthday be like? And who shall be celebrating it with me? And who will be holding my hand as the world dies? I wonder. Here's to the thriving my beauties, my babies, my true beloved ones. They knew about the other doctor too, went to see him. They rang the bell and for a long time no one answered. At last the door was opened by a sad-faced woman in black, but when they asked to see the doctor, she began to cry. He had been arrested by the Germans because he was a Freemason and was held as a hostage. A bomb had exploded in a cafe frequented by German officers, and 2 had been killed and several wounded. It's getting colder in here. What are you doing up there, little boy? If the guilty were not handed over before a certain date, he was to be shot. The woman seemed kindly, and Madame Perrier told her of their trouble. The brutes, she said. She looked at Annette with compassion. My poor child. She gave them the address of a midwife in the town and told them to say they had come from her. The midwife gave them some medicine. It made Annette so ill that she thought she was going to die, but it had no further effect. Annette was still pregnant. That was the story that Madame Perrier told Hans. For a while she was silent. It's Sunday tomorrow, he said then. I shall have nothing to do. I'll come and we'll talk. I'll bring something nice. We have no needles. Can you bring some? I'll try. She hoisted the bundle of sticks on her back and trudged down the road. Hans went back to Soissons. He dared not use his motorcycle, so next day he hired a push bike. He tied his parcel of food on the carrier. It was a larger parcel than usual because he had put a bottle of champagne into it. He got to the farm when the gathering darkness made it certain that they would all be home from work. It was warm and cosy in the kitchen when he walked in. Madame Perrier was cooking and her husband was reading a Paris soir. Annette was darning stockings. Look, I've brought you some needles, he said as he undid his parcel. And here's some material for you, Annette. I don't want it. Don't you? He grinned. You'll have to begin making things for the baby. That's true, Annette, said her mother, and we have nothing. Annette did not look up from her sewing. Madame Perrier's greedy eyes ran over the contents of the parcel. A bottle of champagne, Hans chuckled. I'll tell you what that's for presently. I've had an idea. He hesitated for a moment, then drew up a chair and sat down, facing Annette. I don't know quite how to begin. I'm sorry for what I did that night, Annette. It wasn't my fault. It was the circumstances. Can't you forgive me? She threw him a look of hatred. Never. Why don't you leave me alone? Isn't it enough that you've ruined my life? Well, that's just it. Perhaps I haven't. When I knew you were going to have a baby, it had a funny effect on me. It's all different now. It's made me so proud. Proud? She flung at him viciously. I want you to have the baby, Annette. I'm glad you couldn't get rid of it. How dare you say that? But listen to me. I've been thinking of nothing else since I knew. The war will be over in 6 months. We shall bring the English to their knees in the spring. They haven't got a chance. And then I shall be demobilized, and I'll marry you. You? Why? He blushed under his tan. He could not bring himself to say it in French, so he said it in German. He knew she understood it. Ich liebe dich. What does he say? Asked Madame Perrier. He says he loves me. Annette threw back her head and broke into a peal of harsh laughter. She laughed louder and louder, and she couldn't stop, and tears streamed from her eyes. Madame Perrier slapped her sharply in both cheeks. Don't pay any attention, she said to Hans. It's hysteria, her condition, you know. Annette gasped. She gained control over herself. I brought the bottle of champagne to celebrate our engagement, said Hans. That's the bitterest thing of all, said Annette, that we were beaten by fools, by such fools. Hans went on, speaking in German. I didn't know I loved you till that day, when I found out that you were going to have a baby. It came like a clap of thunder, but I think I've loved you all the time. What does he say? Asked Madame Perrier. Nothing of importance. He fell back into French. He wanted Annette's parents to hear what he had to say. I'd marry you now, only they wouldn't let me. And don't think I'm nothing at all. My father's well-to-do, and we're well thought of in our commune. I'm the eldest son, and you'd want for nothing. Are you a Catholic? Asked Madame Perrier. Yes, I'm a Catholic. That's something. It's pretty, the country where we live, and the soil's good. There's not better farming land between Munich and Innsbruck, and it's our own. My grandfather bought it after the war in '70, and we've got a car and a radio, and we're on the telephone. Annette turned to her father. He has all the tact in the world, this gentleman, she said ironically. She eyed Hans. It would be a nice position for me, the foreigner from the conquered country with a child born out of wedlock. It offers me a chance of happiness, doesn't it? A fine chance. Perrier, a man of few words, spoke for the first time. No, I don't deny that it's a fine gesture you're making. I went through the last war and we all did things we wouldn't have done in peacetime. Human nature is human nature. But now that our son is dead, Annette is all we have. We can't let her go. I thought you might feel that way, said Hans. and I've got my answer to that. I'll stay here. Annette gave him a quick look. What do you mean? Asked Madame Perrier. I've got another brother. He can stay and help my father. I like this country. With energy and initiative, a man could make a good thing of your farm. When the war's over, a lot of Germans will be settling here. It's well known that you haven't got enough men in France to work the land you've got. A fellow gave us a lecture the other day at Soissons. He said that a third of the farms were left uncultivated because there aren't the men to work them. Perrier and his wife exchanged glances, and Annette saw that they were wavering. That was what they'd wanted since their son had died. A son-in-law who was strong and hefty and would take over when they grew too old to do more than potter about. That changes the case, said Madame Perrier. It's a proposition to consider. Hold your tongue, cried Annette roughly. She leant forward and fixed her burning eyes on the German. I'm engaged to a teacher who worked in the boys' school in the town where I taught. They were to be married after the war. He's not strong and big like you, or handsome. He's small and frail. His only beauty is the intelligence that shines in his face. His only strength is the greatness of his soul. He's not a barbarian. He's civilized. He has 1,000 years of civilization behind him. I love him. I love him with all my heart and soul. Hans's face grew sullen. It had never occurred to him that Annette might care for anyone else. Where is he now? Where do you suppose he is? In Germany, a prisoner and starving, while you eat the fat of our land. How many times have I got to tell you that I hate you? You ask me to forgive you. Never! You want to make reparation? You fool. She threw her head back, and there was a look of intolerable anguish on her face. Ruined. Oh, he'll forgive me. He's tender. But I'm tortured by the thought that one day the suspicion may come to him that perhaps I hadn't been forced, that perhaps I'd given myself to you for butter and cheese and silk stockings. I shouldn't be the only one, and what would our life be with that child between us, your child, a German child, big like you and blonde like you and blue-eyed like you. Oh my God, why do I have to suffer this? She got up and went swiftly out of the kitchen. For a minute, the three were left in silence. Hans looked ruefully at his bottle of champagne. He sighed and rose to his feet. When he went out, Madame Perrier accompanied him. Did you mean it when you said you would marry her? She asked him, speaking in a low voice. Yes, every word. I love her. And you wouldn't take her away? You'd stay here and work on the farm? I promise you. Evidently my old man won't last forever. At home, you'd have to share with your brother. Here, you'd share with nobody. There's that too. We never were in favour of Annette marrying that teacher. But our son was alive then, and he said, if she wants to marry him, why shouldn't she? Annette was crazy about him. But now that our son's dead, poor boy, it's different. Even if she wanted to, how could she work the farm alone? It would be a shame if it was sold. I know how one feels about one's own land. They had reached the road. She took his hand and gave it a little squeeze. Come again soon. Hans knew that she was on his side. It was a comfort to him to think that, as he rode back to Soissons, it was a bother that Annette was in love with somebody else. Fortunately, he was a prisoner. Long before he was likely to be released, the baby would be born. That might change her. You could never tell with a woman. How fucking condescending is that? Why in this village, in his village, there'd been a woman who was so much in love with her husband that it had been a joke. And then she had a baby, and after that, she couldn't bear the sight of him. Well, why shouldn't the contrary happen too? And now that he'd offered to marry her, he must see that he was a decent sort of fellow. God, how pathetic she'd looked with her head flung back, and how well she'd spoken. What language! An actress on the stage couldn't have expressed herself better, and yet it had all sounded so natural. You had to admit that these French people knew how to talk. Oh, she was clever, even when she lashed him with that bitter tongue. It was a joy to listen to her. He hadn't had a bad education himself, but he couldn't hold a candle to her. Culture, that's what she had. I'm a donkey, he said out loud as he rode along. She said he was big and strong and handsome. Would she have said that if it hadn't meant something to her? And she talked of the baby having fair hair and blue eyes like his own. If that didn't mean that his colouring had made an impression on her, he was a Dutchman. He chuckled. Where are you going, little boy? Give me time, patience, and let nature go to work. The weeks went by. The CO at Soissons was an elderly, easy-going fellow, and in view of what the spring had in store for them, he was content not to drive his men too hard. The German papers told them that England was being wrecked by the Luftwaffe and the people were in a panic. Submarines were sinking British ships by the score and the country was starving. Revolution was imminent. Before summer it would be all over and the Germans would be masters of the world. Thank God they weren't. Or were they? See also COVID regime. Well, the entire global elites had a role in that, did they not? The Five Eyes countries, all in lockstep. Du Schweinehunde. Hans wrote home and told his parents that he was going to marry a French girl and with her a fine farm. He proposed that his brother should borrow money to buy him out of his share of the family property so that he could increase the size of his own holding while land, owing to the war and the exchange, could still be bought for a song. He went over the farm with Perrier. The old man listened quietly when Hans told him his ideas. The farm would have to be restocked, and as a German, he would have a pull. The motor tractor was old. He would get a fine new one from Germany and a motor plough. To make a farm pay, you had to take advantage of modern inventions. Madame Perrier told him afterwards that her husband had said he wasn't a bad lad and seemed to know a lot. She was very friendly with him now and insisted that I actually feel like vomiting just reading this story. It's selling out to the enemy like that. My stomach is literally churning as if I was actually living through it. Perhaps I am. The contemporary equivalent. It's sickening to the core. Living amongst you who betrayed my own human species and our own DNA. It's sickening to the core. Sickening. Let me read that line again. She was very friendly with him now, insisted that he should share their midday meal with them on Sundays. She translated his name into French and called him Jean. He was always ready to give a hand, and as time went on and Annette could do less and less, it was useful to have a man about who didn't mind doing a job of work. Annette remained fiercely hostile. You go, girl. She never spoke to him except to answer his direct questions, and as soon as it was possible, went to her own room. When it was so cold that she couldn't stay there, she sat by the side of the kitchen stove, sewing or reading, and took no more notice of him than if he hadn't been there. She was in radiant health. There was colour in her cheeks and in Hans's eyes. She was beautiful. Her approaching maternity had given her a strange dignity, and he was filled with exultation when he gazed upon her. Then one day, when he was on his way to the farm, he saw Madame Perrier on the road, waving to him to stop. He put his brakes on hard. "I've been waiting for an hour. I thought you'd never come. You must go back. Pierre is dead." "Who's Pierre?" "Pierre Gavin, the teacher Annette was going to marry." Hans's heart leapt. What luck! Now he'd have his chance. I don't think so, motherfucker. Is she upset? She's not crying. When I tried to say something, she bit my head off. If she saw you today, she's capable of sticking a knife into you. It's not my fault if he died. How did you hear? A prisoner, a friend of his, escaped through Switzerland, and he wrote to Annette. We got the letter this morning. There was a mutiny in the camp because they weren't given enough to eat, and the ringleaders were shot. Pierre was one of them. Hans was silent. He could only think it served the man right. What did they think that a prison camp was? The Ritz? Give her time to get over the shock, said Madame Perrier. When she's calmer, I'll talk to her. I'll write you a letter when you can come again. All right. You will help me, won't you? You can be sure of that. My husband and I, we're agreed. We talked it over and we came to the conclusion that the only thing to do was to accept the situation. He's no fool, my husband. He says the best chance for France now is to collaborate. And take it all in all, I don't dislike you. I shouldn't wonder if you didn't make Annette a better husband than that teacher, and with the baby coming and all. I want it to be a boy, said Hans. This is when they turn, by the way, when the offspring turn out to be girls instead. Dirty motherfuckers. It's going to be a boy, I know for certain. I've seen it in the coffee grounds, and I've put out the cards. The answer is a boy every time. I almost forgot. Here are some papers for you, said Hans, as he turned his cycle and prepared to mount. He handed her 3 numbers of Paris Soir. Old Perrier read every evening. He read that the French must be realistic and accept the new order that Hitler was going to create in Europe. He read that the German submarines were sweeping the sea. He read that the General Staff had organised the last detail, the campaign that would bring England to her knees, and that the Americans were too unprepared, too soft, and too divided to come to her help. He read that France must take the heaven-sent opportunity and by loyal collaboration with the Reich regain her honoured position in the new Europe. And it wasn't Germans who wrote it all, it was Frenchmen. Fucking traitors. Like our press during the COVID epoch. Traitors and cowards and complicit genocidal dogs they were and still are. No, I have not forgotten, nor will I ever allow it to be forgotten as long as you draw breath. So send me your fake lovers to lure me into a false sense of security and of sweetness and kindness, and let me think for once I had a tribe who loved me and welcomed me and included me, when we all know the truth now, don't we? I know who and what you truly are, complicit and complacent, cowards who would sell my tuchus for 2 bags of sugar if there was another war on Australian soil. And how I danced joyously, thinking it was all beautiful and authentic and real and sweet. Well, you've played me for a fool, and now your time has come. I will continue to dance as it suits me and only me, on my terms. And you, who genuinely admire and respect and honour me, will get to see me dance in full tribal triumph and victory over all my oppressors. Jewish, non-Jewish, makes no difference, motherfuckers. Same pattern, same trope, on repeat. It's what probably saved my life when the COVID epoch began, because I'd already lived through all of that ugliness and survived it. And it wasn't Germans who wrote it all, it was Frenchmen. He nodded his head with approval when he read that the plutocrats and the Jews would be destroyed, and the poor man in France would at last come into his own. There's no country for poor men. You're always despised and despoiled and deemed weak and useless eaters and destroyed by rapists and psychopaths and greedy, corrupt vermin. They were quite right, the clever fellows who said that France was essentially an agricultural country and its backbone was its industrious farmers. Good sense that was. Then they had the Rainbow Warrior, bombed Mururoa in New Zealand waters with their nukes. Showed what they're capable of. No, I haven't forgotten about that either. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, n'est-ce pas? One evening, when they were finishing their supper, 10 days after the news had come of Pierre Gavin's death, Madame Perrier, by arrangement with her husband, said to Annette. I wrote a letter to Hans a few days ago, telling him to come here tomorrow. Thank you for the warning. I shall stay in my room. Oh, come, daughter. The time has passed for foolishness. You must be realistic. Pierre is dead. Hans loves you and wants to marry you. He's a fine-looking fellow. Any girl would be proud of him as a husband. They really have Stockholm Syndrome, don't they? It's astonishing. How can we restock the farm without his help? He's going to buy a tractor and a plough with his own money. You must let bygones be bygones. You're wasting your breath, mother. I earned my living before. I can earn my living again. I hate him. I hate his vanity and his arrogance. I could kill him. His death wouldn't satisfy me. I would like to torture him as he's tortured me. I think I should die happy if I could find a way to wound him as he's wounded me. You're being very silly, my poor child. Your mother's right, my girl, said Perrier. We've been defeated and we must accept the consequences. We've got to make the best arrangement we can with the conquerors. We're cleverer than they are, and if we play our cards well, we shall come out on top. France was rotten. It's the Jews and the plutocrats who ruined the country. For that alone they deserve to be destroyed. Just for that statement alone. Read the papers and you'll see for yourself. See how the people are brainwashed by drivel written in newspapers, how dangerous it is, how malfeasant it is, how putrid it really is. Sell out their own rape victim daughters to the enemy because they're told to fear the Jews more than the Germans. Are you out of your minds, people of Earth? Do you think I believe a word in that paper? Why do you think he brings it to you, except that it's sold to the Germans? The men who write in it, traitors, traitors. Oh God, may I live to see them torn to pieces by the mob. Bought, every one of them, bought with German money. The swine. Annette gets it, and she's right. High five, sister. What have you got against the boy? He took you by force. Yes, he was drunk at the time. It's not the first time that's happened to a woman, and it won't be the last. He hit your father and he bled like a pig. But does your father bear him malice? It was an unpleasant incident, but I've forgotten it, said Perrier. Well, as Uncle Case used to say, they're lovers, not fighters. The first that fell in the assembly lines in Mittelbaldora. The very first died by the droves. Awful it is, awful. Such weakness. Such treachery of your own culture and your own country and your own humanity for the sake of a bit of cheese and a bit of pork on your fork. I was merciful before when I said, well, they were hungry. What have you got against the boy? Oh, we've read that, sorry. It was an unpleasant incident, but I've forgotten, said Perrier. Annette burst into harsh laughter. You should have been a priest. You forgive injuries with a spirit truly Christian. Another weak religion, full of weakness and self-abasement and treachery. Suffer the little children to come unto me. Indeed, filthy it is, all of it, all of it. But here, happy thought behind me, little Kirby swinging. And what is there wrong about that? Asked Madame Perrier angrily. Hadn't he done everything he could to make amends? Where would your father have got his tobacco all these months if it hadn't been for him? If we hadn't gone hungry, it's owing to him. If you'd had any pride, if you'd had any sense of decency, you would have thrown his presents in his face. She's right about that, you know. She's completely right. You've profited by them, haven't you? Never, never. It's a lie and you know it. You've refused to eat the cheese he brought, and the butter, and the sardines. But the soup you've eaten, you know I put meat in it that he brought, and the salad you ate tonight. If you didn't have to eat it dry, it's because he brought me oil. Annette sighed deeply. She passed her hand over her eyes. I know. I tried not to. I couldn't help myself. I was so hungry. Yes, I knew his meat went into the soup, and I ate it. I knew the salad was made with his oil. I wanted to refuse it. I had such a longing for it. It wasn't I that ate it. It was a ravenous beast within me. Which we shall call the will to live, the life force. That's neither here nor there. You ate it. With shame, with despair, they broke our strength first with their tanks and their planes, and now, when we're defenceless, they're breaking our spirit by starving us. You get nowhere by being theatrical, my girl. For an educated woman, you have really no sense. Forget the past and give a father to your child, to say nothing of a good workman for the farm who'll be worth 2 hired men. That is sense. I can already see how that's about to go horribly wrong, by the way, because I know what men are really like. Deceitful, treacherous, cowardly, disloyal, and cruel. How many more pages? Because we're running out of time. Right, quickly. Quickly, my beloved ones. Annette shrugged her shoulders wearily and they lapsed into silence. Next day, Hunts came. Annette gave him a sullen look, but neither spoke nor moved. Hunt smiled. "Thank you for not running away," he said. "My parents asked you to come and they've gone down to the village. It suits me because I want to have a definite talk with you. Sit down." He took off his coat and his helmet and drew a chair to the table. "My parents want me to marry you. You've been clever, with your presents, with your promises. You've got round them. They believe all they read in the papers you bring them. I want to tell you that I will never marry you. I wouldn't have thought it possible that I could hate a human being as I hate you. Let me speak in German. You understand enough to know what I'm saying. I ought to. I taught it. For 2 years I was governess to 2 little girls in Stuttgart." He broke into German, but she went on speaking French. "It's not only that I love you, I admire you. I admire your distinction and your grace. There's something about you I don't understand. I respect you. Oh, I can see that you don't want to marry me now, even if it were possible. But Pierre is dead." "Don't speak of him," she cried violently. "That would be the last straw. I only want to tell you that for your sake, I'm sorry he died, shot in cold blood by his German jailers. Perhaps in time you'll grieve for him less. You know, when someone you love dies, you think you'll never get over it, but you do. Won't it be better then to have a father for your child?" "What are you two doing? You stirring each other up? Little Beau." "C'est une folie, petit Beau." You can't be in the soldiers' social. No. You're getting adventurous. You're getting adventurous, sweet boy. It's the first time he's actually flown around the room so much. It's good for him. It's good for him to be free and to fly. "Yes, Kermie, you can have some flying time later too." Separately. "Even if there was nothing else, do you think I could ever forget that you are a German and I'm a French woman? If you weren't as stupid as only a German can be, you'd see that that child must be a reproach to me as long as I live. Do you think I have no friends? How could I ever look them in the face with the child I had with a German soldier? There's only one thing I ask you. Leave me alone with my disgrace." "Hey, excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. No, no fighting, sir. If you're going to break things, you have to go back in your cage, understand?" He's biting my wooden cigar boxes that I keep, bits and pieces on. "There's only one thing I ask you. Leave me alone with my disgrace. Go for God's sake. Go, and never come again. But he's my child too. I want him. You? She cried in astonishment. What can a bye-blow that you got in a moment of savage drunkenness mean to you? You don't understand. I'm so proud and so happy. It was when I knew you were going to have a baby that I knew I loved you. At first I couldn't believe it. It was such a surprise to me. Don't you see what I mean? That child that's going to be born means everything in the world to me. Oh, I don't know how to put it. It's put feelings in my heart that I don't understand myself. What are you doing, little Bo? Come on, little one. Yes, come to the mama tea of your own free will, with true love in your heart and mind and soul, like all my true beloveds. She looked at him intently, and there was a strange gleam in her eyes. You would have said it was a look of triumph. She gave a short laugh. I don't know whether I more loathe the brutality of you Germans or despise the sentimentality. He seemed not to have heard what she said. I think of him all the time. You've made your mind up. It'll be a boy. I know it'll be a boy. I want to hold him in my arms, and I want to teach him to walk, and then when he grows older, I'll teach him all I know. I'll teach him to ride, and I'll teach him to shoot. Are there fish in your brook? I'll teach him to fish. I'm going to be the proudest father in the world. She stared at him with hard, hard eyes. Her face was set and stern. An idea, a terrible idea was forming itself in her mind. He gave her a disarming smile. Perhaps when you see how much I love our boy, you'll come to love me too. I'll make you a good husband, my pretty. She said nothing. She merely kept on gazing at him sullenly. Haven't you one kind word for me? He said. She flushed. She clasped her hands tightly together. Others may despise me. I will never do anything that can make me despise myself. You are my enemy, and you will always be my enemy. I only live to see the deliverance of France. It will come, perhaps not next year or the year after, perhaps not for 30 years, but it will come. The rest of them can do what they like. I will never come to terms with the invaders of my country. I hate you, and I hate this child that you've given me. Yes, we've been defeated. Before the end comes, you'll see that we haven't been conquered. Now go. My mind's made up, and nothing on God's earth can change it. He was silent for a minute or two. Have you made arrangements for a doctor? I'll pay all the expenses. Do you suppose we want to spread our shame through the whole countryside? My mother will do all that's necessary. But supposing there's an accident? No, my love, you can't be there. Good boy. And supposing you mind your own business? He sighed and rose to his feet. When he closed the door behind him, she watched him walk down the pathway that led to the road. She realised with rage that some of the things he said had aroused in her heart a feeling that she had never felt for him before. "Oh God, give me strength," she cried. Then, as he walked along, the dog, an old dog they'd had for years, ran up to him, barking angrily. He had tried for months to make friends with the dog, but it had never responded to his advances. When he tried to pat it, it backed away, growling, showed its teeth. And now, as the dog ran towards him, irritably, giving way to his feeling of frustration, Hans gave it a savage, brutal kick, and the dog was flung into the bushes and limped, yelping, away. "The beast!" he cried. "Lies, lies, lies!" And I was weak enough to be almost sorry for him. There was a looking glass hanging by the side of the door, and she looked at herself in it. She drew herself up and smiled at her reflection, but rather than a smile, it was a fiendish grimace. It was now March. There was a bustle of activity in the garrison at Soissons. There were inspections and there was intensive training. Rumour was rife. There was no doubt they were going somewhere, but the rank and file could only guess where. Some thought they were being got ready at last for the invasion of England. Others were of opinion that they would be sent to the Balkans, and others talked of the Ukraine. Hans was kept busy. It was not till the 2nd, Sunday afternoon, that he was able to get out to the farm. It was a cold grey day with sleet that looked as though it might turn to snow, falling in sudden, windy flurries. The country was grim and cheerless. "You!" cried Madame Perrier when he went in. "We thought you were dead. I couldn't come before. We're off any day now. We don't know when. The baby was born this morning. It's a boy." Hans's heart gave a great leap in his breast. He hung his arms round the old woman and kissed her on both cheeks. "A Sunday child. He ought to be lucky. Let's open the bottle of champagne. How's Annette?" "She's as well as can be expected. She had a very easy time. She began to have pains last night, and by 5 o'clock this morning it was all over." Old Perrier was smoking his pipe, sitting as near the stove as he could get. He smiled quietly at the boy's enthusiasm. "One's first child. It has an effect on one," he said. "He has quite a lot of hair, and it's as fair as yours, and blue eyes, just like you said he'd have," said Madame Perrier. "I've never seen a lovelier baby. He'll be just like his papa." "Oh my God, I'm so happy," cried Hans. "How beautiful the world is. I want to see Annette. I don't know if she'll see you. I don't want to upset her on account of the milk." No, don't upset her on my account. If she doesn't want to see me, it doesn't matter. But let me see the baby, just for a minute. I'll see what I can do. I'll try to bring it down." Madame Perrier went out, and they heard her heavy tread clumping up the stairs. But in a moment they heard her clattering down again. She burst into the kitchen. "They're not there. She isn't in her room. The baby's gone." Perrier and Hans cried out, and without thinking what they were doing, all three of them scampered upstairs. The harsh light of the winter afternoon cast over the shabby furniture, the iron bed, the cheap wardrobe, the chest of drawers, a dismal squalor. There was no one in the room. "Where is she?" screamed Madame Perrier. She ran into the narrow passage, opening doors, and called the girl's name. "Annette! Annette! Oh, what madness! Perhaps in the sitting room." They ran downstairs to the unused parlour. An icy air met them as they opened the door. They opened the door of a storeroom. "She's gone out. Something awful has happened." "How could she have got out?" asked Hans, sick with anxiety. "Through the front door, you fool." Perrier went up to it and looked. "That's right, the bolt's drawn back." "Oh, my God, what madness!" cried Madame Perrier. "It'll kill her." "We must look for her," said Hans. Instinctively, because that was the way he always went in and out, he ran back into the kitchen, and the others followed him. "Which way?" "The brook," the old woman gasped. He stopped as though turned to stone with horror. He stared at the old woman, aghast. "I'm frightened," she cried. "I'm frightened!" Hans flung open the door, and, as he did so, Annette walked in. She had nothing on but her nightdress and a flimsy rayon dressing gown. It was pink, with pale blue flowers. She was soaked, and her hair, dishevelled, clung damply to her head and hung down her shoulders in bedraggled wisps. She was deathly white. Madame Perrier sprang towards her and took her in her arms. "Where have you been? Oh, my poor child, you're wet through. What madness!" But Annette pushed her away. She looked at Hans. "What are you doing, little bug? Come. Come. No, we're not there yet. You can come to me, but oh well. Free will and true love's heartfelt and sincere. Even the birdies won't settle for less, my darlings. You've come at the right moment, you. "Where's the baby?" cried Madame Perrier. "I had to do it at once. I was afraid if I waited, I shouldn't have the courage." "Annette, what have you done?" "I've done what I had to do. I took it down to the brook and held it under water till it was dead." Hans gave a great cry, the cry of an animal wounded to death. He covered his face with his hands, and staggering like a drunken man, flung out of the door. Annette sank into a chair and, leaning her forehead on her two fists, burst into passionate weeping. The end. I'll be posting trigger warnings to the story because it was very, very intense. The Unconquered, as it should be. But alas, the poor baby, you understand. It's not the baby's fault, but postnatal depression and shock is a thing, and The baby was a casualty of war. Good afternoon, people of Earth. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the space-time continuum. Go and have a stiff drink or a nice cup of tea. I'm going to celebrate life by having some lunch. Quite hungry and it's 2:14 p.m. What are you chewing, little Bo? Gotta watch him because parrots chew. He's really sussing everything out. Yes, my little one. Having a good old time. Anyway, yes, I shall celebrate life by having lunch and think grand and beautiful thoughts and celebrate the fact that I too was unconquerable in my own quiet little way, lying in bed in a zombie state for decades. The power of the human spirit to survive your familial monsters and later your societal monsters, and still yet find joy and delight and magic in the world. Blessed be. Bye for now from Sacred Space, Titania's Realm.